otherwise you couldn't, in other words, you can't really cantilever this.
Mm-hmm.
But this has gotta be a straight, solid beam.
Sure.
So if you have these running this way, which is this, then the girder that you're talking about is gonna be here. Right, but since you're wrapping it in lattice, it really doesn't make any difference one way or another, but it just,
Well, I think it does make a difference because if that's the case, then the line of the lattice should be at the edge of the deck and not just coming up to the sonotubes, because you're going to have this, you're gonna have this, as I was saying, you're gonna have this sticking up below the bottom. Is that right, Al?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would be, I liked the idea of not having any lattice on it when we discussed it originally, but
Oh, I'm fine with that too. I just thought you'd rather that.
I'm not that into it,
And I was
except for the
thinking
fact that
by
now that you've
putting these
moved-
back, it makes it less necessary, right?
Well, I think that's the
Design?
issue, is
No.
by having
Yeah.
these set so far back, it looks visually like it's not being held up properly.
Oh. So you would rather them on the edge?
I think if they were on the edge and you didn't have any lattice incorporated, it would just be a cleaner design.
I'm fine with
But
that
I'm not a
too.
definite-
Wait, you're talking about moving the
so.
sonotube? Or,
Yeah.
Well, the sonotube is just to hold these posts.
right,
The posts are set in somewhat
the
arbitrarily.
sonotube's gonna be a grade, so you're just gonna see posts.
Well, a couple inches of grade,
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be at grade at this end, but not at this end.
Right.
because of the slope.
Mhm.
Personally,
No, actually, it would be at this end, it would be at grade.
I
My
feel very-
original design had them on the end,
Right.
but I thought that you wanted them hidden, so I left them.
I feel very flexible about the lattice because I think oftentimes, especially when you have a grade change like this, the lattice becomes more of an object than if there were none.
Right.
So I would
Mhm.
defer to the property owner on that. Whether
Sure.
he would like to have it or not.
But in the event that there is no lattice,
So I would the sonotubes be recessed.
but do we feel the sonotubes being inset 2 feet from any surface makes sense?
How does that make it more visible?
Well, actually, the only place you would really need the lattice is in this end, because in this end, it's virtually obscured by the stairs, and here it's just on the back side of the property, so it doesn't matter.
I'd
It's
like
just
it
really needed here.
uniform if we pick one or the other.
The other thing which we can do, which may make a little more sense visually, is if we do the lattice, break it up with posts to align with the posts in the guardrail. Because that way you're not talking about a big,
A long
huge
stretch of.
expanse of lattice.
So have on this elevation 2 sort of framed boxes with a post in the middle.
Yeah.
Does the board in general have a preference of lattice versus no lattice?
My preference is still no lattice, but I do just find the support posts to be in a bit of a wacky position, but
I mean,
I guess I'm the
It-
only one.
I mean,
so.
just,
I think
like I said, when
visibility-
it's funny, when you do Dex.com, they just put them on the ends
Yeah.
by default, and I left them there at first, and I kept wondering if it was better to make them, tuck them under, or put them on the end. So I'm flexible either way.
I think the lattice, because on one side, I think it's, I might be reading this wrong now because it's getting late.
Streets here.
Street side, right, isn't this, this elevation, isn't that almost 5 feet from grade level?
No, sorry,
This side is.
That
No,
side, okay.
this side.
This
No,
side is
there's
the
the
street
slope,
side.
okay, I'm
That
sorry,
side.
it's
Yeah.
like I said, I'm flip-flopping it, okay.
yeah, it's
So I don't really care if there's lattice or not,
It's
because you're not
not
gonna
super
see it
visible
from,
from the street.
No.
I mean, I know we talked about the bush, and you said it might, could die someday, but it's a very old bush, so it's been there a long time, and it's
It's just
There's
that we
a
can't
huge
talk about
rhododendron.
vegetation, we don't have purview
Alright.
over it, so.
So right, if the fence goes in too, by the time you put the fence in, all vegetation, it's not gonna be very
Um,
visible, anyway.
Here's my view, so we can wrap it up. If this is one of the few fancy, fussy Queen Anne's we have in the village. It is much more sedate in its monotone, coloring than it was previously. So you don't see the detail as much as you did, but it still reads very much as a lively facade from its period. I think the lattice, wherever the lattice gets installed, ends up being a visual distraction and draws your eye to a place it doesn't need to be. I think in my view, less is more and competes less with this lovely, frilly, fancy,
Mhm.
That's always
East Lake,
been our
Queen Anne.
And not having the
approach with it.
stairs on the
Yeah.
other
Less is more.
side, I think, just reducing the amount of that's already like a huge improvement, so.
So,
I would say
You
no
wanna-
lattice, we've approved it before, so.
All right, and are we keeping the posts recessed?
I don't feel strongly about that. I don't think it would be strange because the grades, I think you're gonna see them from the public right of way anyway, because you experience it so far back and at an angle. I don't think, you have to recess them pretty deep not to see them at all. I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Well, I think from at least the sidewalk, most of this little mass here is gonna block most of what you see there anyway, so.
Well, depending upon that joist going across here,
Mm-hmm.
that is a joist going across here, right?
Mm-hmm. The header, yeah.
As long as this, this trim here is deep enough that it conceals the
Yeah.
end of it,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
problem.
I agree with that.
Yeah. You're talking about this piece here.
Yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the end of the header
Well, I'm talking
being
about
the
the end
trim.
over here.
Yeah, you
Sure.
don't wanna see
Yeah.
like the, sticking out from
No, of course not.
underneath.
Yeah.
Like, you don't wanna see it like
Process.
hanging out like that.
Yeah, no.
Well, the thing is that if you move the sonotubes to the edge, then you won't have that cross girder.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically then what
Right.
you're gonna wind up doing is supporting
And wait for
a
the-
double header across
Mhm.
the
The
front, and then just framing from that to the
Yeah.
house.
And I thought it would be better for the stairs, right? Because
Mhm,
that's where
mhm.
the stairs need to rest.
Yeah, so you could
Um,
just move the header closer to the
But you'd have to add an extra header, I think, in here, or some kind of
Yeah,
support
on either
extra
side
header
of
for
the-
for the staircase,
the
that's what their
stair.
contractor told me.
Yeah, well, in other words, it would be a double header here.
Right.
And the question really is that your sonotube would probably go here,
Right.
here, here, and here.
I think they'd still be three, one, and then one in the center, one here.
I think it's less visually disruptive being closer to the staircase, where you'd expect to see something like that anyway.
It's 13 feet wide, I think, yeah, you probably could get away with 3.
So I would move to accept this, with no lattice and with the sonotubes moved to the edge of the deck.
Second,
Move to,
The front edge.
okay, any questions or comments?
just making clear on your markup that the rail is to be as in the image.
Yeah, you can include that.
Where did we end up with the fence last time? Sorry, that was like,
So I
Wait,
have.
did we finish
Wait,
voting?
wait,
We didn't
wait.
finish voting on that.
Finish,
stuff on
let's
the
finish
fence,
one.
Who
Okay,
seconded?
Yeah.
second, all
I
right.
seconded it, yeah.
Sean,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yeah,
Andrea?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So, 3 sonotubes as they're now located? Or, in other words,
Or
where,
on the edge.
no,
so,
they'd be equally spaced, they'd go from corner, middle, and corner, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
That was the design that I was going to submit to you. Yeah.
All right, but by moving it forward, you wanna keep 3, right? And am I correct that these are gonna move to the corner?
Yeah.
And there's something stays here. All right, so sonitude, sonitude, sonitude. And you're gonna have a double header, so you're not gonna need your girder down the middle.
Correct.
Okay,
You awake, Maggie? Okay, just checking.
okay, all right, so the posts and the construction is cedar, the wood?
For the balusters?
Well, let's go through the list, the railing.
Yeah, the decking is gonna be, pressure treated 5/4, decking boards. Fewer splinters of that nature.
Okay,
And then the balusters and railings would be cedar. And everything will be, painted. Cedar's probably the way to go, right? You think?
Yeah.
Matter?
For the reception. Sure. It's wood.
And it endures,
Yeah.
um, does that clock always tick like that? I've never heard it.
Because
There's usually a lot more shouting during the meetings.
Right.
It's so quiet.
okay, let's talk about fence.
Okay, so, this. Where is all the copies of this image? Took this picture, of my neighbor's, fence. And so, you know, the fence, when we put in the post, the new posts, putting them in between the posts as we had discussed, not on top of the post. They would look similar with the cap that you see visible there. Fence is, currently, the existing fence is 3 feet, so the post will be slightly higher, 3 feet,
X.
2 inches, and a cap. So I imagine the look, you had images of the fence and it's got a slightly different shape to the top than this fence. It's got a little notch in the top, but otherwise,
Is this,
should look
is
pretty
this
similar.
flat on the top, or does it have
This
sort
one
of
has a
pyramidal.
slight pyramid to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And you're not doing Sylvia said you're not doing or you're not talking to us about, as a landscape feature, an arbor at the end.
Yeah, it won't be connected to the fence in any way.
So you're just ending with a post, there's no gate.
There's no gate. It'll let's see. I think you guys had a similar image to this.
Yeah,
It'll
where it
it'll
ends,
take
right.
a turn towards the house, so and then the arbor will be on the other side of it. So yeah, no, it's
So you're taking this fencing from the back of the
Mhm.
lot and
Yeah.
moving it forward?
yeah,
Are you replacing the one in back?
no.
Okey-doke.
Right,
And
I
the
guess,
and the arbor, are you going to bring that in?
I
This
thought we
We were
didn't
talking
need
about
to.
that last time, and because it's not connected to the fence, it's intended to be for climbing vegetation. We talked about it as a landscape feature last time.
But
Did we not?
it's installed, isn't it? I mean, it's not something that you pick up and put in the garage in the wintertime.
I think this one would be, but we haven't purchased it yet, so I don't know, but I don't.
Well, at this point, you don't have a design for it.
Yeah, so could we,
and my feeling is that, you know, you're talking about, something which is not permanently installed. I think, you know, even if it is installed, and we're not talking about something permanent, this is a landscape.
Well, it's going to be
feature.
there year-round, right? And
Okay.
year-round is permanent. I mean, the only thing we have, that there's been discussion of in the village regarding, temporary features is things that are there for 3 months or less. You
Well-
know, and something that's there year-round is considered permanent, because they were even talking about sheds. If you have one of these little plastic sheds and you put it on your property, and, you know, if it's there year-round, it may not be affixed to the ground in any structural way, but it's considered permanent.
Well, you know, for example, these trellises, which are, you know, people, you know, put in the ground and they're year-round for climbing plants and stuff like that. Does that mean you review those too?
Well, if you have it as a design element in the whole thing, yeah, I would think so. It's not just putting in, you know, one time you're putting in a trellis, but if it's part of an entire ensemble design, even if it's not connected together. You know, if it's going to be there year-round, it's permanent.
could we remove it from this application and
Sure.
revisit it at another time?
Sure.
I mean,
Okay,
we should talk about putting a pin in something. We should talk about that when we get to design standards.
Design standards?
We should do
Yeah.
it in design standards, yes, but I mean, I think there's
I think
also,
things are
there's a,
would
there's
depend
a,
in a way, right? And
Pardon
if
me?
you, I'm just picturing a you know, a trellis or something that you know, buy
You're
at a
talking about
garden
like an
store and you,
archway type of thing?
you know, my wife should be here for that, cause she probably knows exactly what she
Because I
wants.
mean, the little
It's like,
sketch
uh,
drawing we had appeared to be an archway type of thing.
Looking thing.
But I'd imagine something that you know, you kinda use the weight of your foot to.
Yeah, I think if it's something that's
Push
staked
into
into
the
the
ground.
ground, it's entirely different than something that's poured into cement.
Well, the intention is different. I mean, you have, a fence is intended to last
Okay.
as long as it can possibly
I
last.
see
Well,
your-
this
I
isn't
see your
design standards.
point.
Yeah, but I
That's
mean,
not
we
something
had,
that's
we had
why
the
we
same
need to
discussion
discuss
about
it.
the,
It has
Okay,
to
well,
about
we
the
dropped it from
little-
the application.
we had the same discussion regarding the little, restaurant, the other side of the
Doug's.
tracks.
Oh, oh, I thought you were talking about,
And
yeah,
like lattice.
Rincon Argentino.
Yeah, that's,
that was connected to the fence.
okay,
But,
well,
all right, I guess the question I have is the extent, because this is what you've got right now.
Oh, you have it on the site
Yeah.
plan too. I showed it on the site plan
Well,
last
here's
time.
the site plan.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, are you taking this down and replacing it with this, to the extent shown, of the existing?
I
He's
think he's
taking this
using
down,
that.
using
Well,
that,
you
and he's just
wanted-
showing us the
I think
post
you just
here.
wanted to see what the post.
Okay, so you're talking about the post,
Mhm.
but, so this comes down and it's installed with the post, but these pickets are gonna be this.
The fence itself
That's
is
right.
just gonna be moved forward on the property.
Yeah.
and
And-
connected
it's
to
going to be
posts
between
like
the
that.
posts, not applied onto the post.
Correct.
Okay.
Have to replace
I
it.
gotta know, because I gotta write this all up. All right, so do I have a motion concerning the the fence application?
Move to approve as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
There you go.
All right, well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's that go.
Now we know.
There you go.
Bye.
Thank you.
Alright.
Bring up the chair, Joe. Does everybody know Madeline and Joe? Right? You know Sean, right?
Yes.
Caroline, you know Matt?
It's nice to meet you all.
Sean,
I
you guys are
can
neighbors.
see your
Hi,
house
good to
from
see
my
you.
house.
That's right.
Hi, Al Splinsky,
Al?
nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Thank
I'm
you.
not shaking hands
Oh,
because I'm
okay,
sick.
thank you.
I made 6, I'm looking at 6 person.
One's a file copy, that's cool.
Okay, you want that one more?
Oh, I love Madeline and her tabs.
Boy, this is organized, huh?
I know, I
I also
love when
have, I
Madeline
also have
comes
the
in.
larger drawings. Catherine suggested that I reduce them to 11 by 17, but these are a quarter inch scale, for you to refer to them.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, take this one. You got it?
This project is at 24 Parsonage Street. It's in the local historic district. In your packet, you'll find a location plan and a site plan, existing house photos, neighbors' houses, and streetscape photos. A bit of history on the house, and then examples from the town and the village that we looked to. Some catalog cuts of the products we're proposing. And then the 11 by 17 sheets, one set is the existing / demolition plan and elevations, and the proposed plans and elevations with three-dimensional sketch and some wall section sketches as well. So if you turn back to the location map, which is page 1, you'll see 24 Parsonage Street is between Pine and 301. And the back of the property borders Nelsonville. The next page is the site plan, which opens up. And this is Parsonage. This is the Nelsonville side. It's a 2-story cottage built in 1858 with an enclosed 1-story front porch and a 1-story concrete block garage in the rear. And there's a 1-story piece in the back. The addition will be at the rear of the house, facing Nelsonville. But we're also doing work that you'll catch as a glimpse as you're walking along Parsonage. And then we're also doing work on the front of the house, at the porch, siding, windows, eaves, dormers, all being affected. So that's why we're here, because you're gonna see everything from the public view. But that being said, our intention was to minimize the massing seen from the street to retain the small cottage feel. So that's why we put the addition to the rear. So the existing photos show the house, and although it doesn't look like it, the house is a hidden gem. It is one of the original foundry workings cottages, built in 1858. And so this has all the views of the house, and you'll see that it's covered in vinyl siding, vinyl windows, aluminum fascias, and the eaves have all been boxed in. The front porch is enclosed with aluminum windows and aluminum trim. and there's a brick knee wall over a concrete block wall, or solid concrete, I'm not sure if you call it or not, on the front porch. So the original house was then added to in the rear. You see on page 6 at the rear, there's that piece that's the bathroom, existing bathroom, and then there's a covered patio covering that was added. So this is where the work is going to be happening in the back. You look at page 7, the rear. The chimney is brick. And so I have all the sides. On page 10, you see the boxed-in dormer. And then starting on page 11, you have pictures of the garage. So what you see from the street, you see the existing garage door down the driveway, and then the garage is a concrete block structure that's unfinished all the way around, all the views of the garage, and then the rear patio has been covered over. And then on page 16, this is the interior of the existing front porch, which is a room that gets a lot of use. It faces south, and it has the most light of any room in the house. So now moving to the neighbors' houses. So this first photo shows 24 parsonage flanked by the 2 neighbors, and you can see that they've both added to the rear as well, the shed dormers. And 26 parsonage next door, a little more detailed photos of that house has also been stuccoed over. Enclosed front porch too. Page 20 is the neighbor to the north.
It's so
And then-
surprising, excuse me, Madeline, but to look at the photograph of the folks standing in front of this one, to see the single dormer. Remember, we spent a lot of time on the building next door with the folks when they redid that one. The single dormer.
Right, so they added a dormer. But the 24 parsonage had 2 dormers, if you look at the
Yeah.
historic photos, yeah. Some of
So
them had 1, some of
interesting.
them had 2. So I don't know if you talk, the neighbor across the street, there's a photo there, and then I have some photos of the streetscapes looking to the north and to the south. But the one that's the most revealing is on page 24 of this general streetscape of the cottages sort of marching down the street. And you can see how there's that consistent massing and consistent footprint. At one point, they were believed to be identical, and then they changed over time. The house is historically significant. As I mentioned, it was a foundry workman's cottage, and the map from 1867 shows that line of cottages, the consistent footprint. And I read a paper that Kathleen shared with me about these houses, and that they have that repetitious form, and they are identified as worker housing, and they were probably designed from a single pattern. And despite their modifications over time, where things were added and covered over, you still really read the Carpenter Gothic style, the
Yeah,
Carpenter,
but look at the
Carpenter
first,
Gothic revival.
look at the first picture on page 26,
Mhm.
the house next door
Yes,
that came before this board. Not only did it only have 1 dormer on the roof, but it didn't have a
The
front porch.
I know,
It just
it's-
had the
it's
little
so
porch.
surprising.
It
Yeah.
just had that little enclosed porch.
Right.
It also had vertical siding on it.
They all
Yeah,
did.
they all
vertical.
did.
yeah,
I
the
know.
board and batten.
It's so cute.
So this was a group of houses that were built by Parrott, in the 1840s and 1860s, that were for married men and their families. They were the single family houses as opposed to the boarding houses and the duplexes that you're familiar with too. So we have on page 26 and 27 these historical photos that were given to Joe by the previous owner, Nina, in the 1940s and 1950s. And we use these photos as a point of departure for the design of the renovation. It's not going to be a literal translation of what you see here, but it was an inspiration. We'd like to pay homage to the historical significance of the original house, yet integrate some of the alterations and additions and changes that have happened since, and make a modest design, and still in a small scale, but we also have to meet the needs of this family of 4 that now lives here. So from the historic photos, we took details from the dormers, the vertical board and batten, you'll see later on when I show you the proposed, the rake trim details, and just took some clues. we really fell in love with the Carpenter Gothic style for a cottage because it has that, it has that vernacular feel to it, it has a simple feel, and it was applied to small houses and small outbuildings when the board and batten was very common. So on page 28, you'll see this is a place where the behind the siding is revealed. It's the old wood that is there. And I think that when we remove the vinyl siding, we're gonna uncover quite a bit. And so, you know, some of the dormers may still be intact, some of the rakes, we'll see what happens. A lot of this project is gonna be about uncovering and revealing. We were also influenced by A.J. Downing's The Architecture of Country Houses, the 1850s pattern book, particularly A Small Cottage for a Working Man, and drew a lot of connections between Downing and the worker housing on Parsonage Street. As you all know, he was very influential in setting the style for the working class, the architectural styles and design philosophy of a simple, economical massing and very plain exterior, not a lot of ornament, but there's still charm and a picturesque feel. He actually preferred the vertical board and batten over the horizontal, as it was more economical and more suitable for cottages and outbuildings. The boards were pine, tongue and groove, covered with neat square battens, and at the base there was a horizontal plank that served as a plinth base over the foundation. And there was usually an open rake and an eave with exposed purlins and rafter tails. These are photos from the Putnam History Museum archive, which shows that exposed. The boxed in, the eave is open at the end there.
Do we know, did they know which structure, or where this particular one is?
You know, when I was there, the gentleman said he was going to write it down, but then when I picked up the copies, he wasn't there, and so I don't know where it's from. But it's not in the village.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's sort of out in the country, but it
It's
does.
got that-
it is
it's got that
It
feel.
has that feel. Yeah. So these are just all inspirations. Then in the village itself, on page 31, we looked at vertical board and batten houses, and in Garrison Landing as
I'm
well.
looking at 31, here we have the cottage on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I heard that was coming down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on Route 301 or Route 9, there's this gem, which I don't really know.
McKeel's champion, right?
Yeah, I don't know who uses it now. Is it even occupied
Sure.
inside?
PCNR.
There aren't weekly services there. It gets open once a year.
Yeah.
For
Well,
something
Like
it-
4th of
it's-
July or
yeah.
Veterans Day or something.
McKeel's Corner Chapel.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
And then we looked at some enclosed porches as well. And then on page 35, we were inspired by the river rock stone walls and some of the porches that have those stone walls, and I'll talk more about that later. So if you can turn to the 11 by 17 sheets, this is the drawings themselves, what we're proposing. So the project started out with, there's not enough space to get in the house at the front entrance, because you walk in and the stairs right there. So that's how the project started. And we proposed to, and I know you don't deal with interiors, but this affected the exteriors, and sort of how it started. So we proposed to come in and shift the stair to the north, and that then affected the window there, because that window is a full height window, and then that's how the whole project started. Now we have to go to the board, because we have to change that window. So then we went from there. So we're basically keeping the existing footprint on this level, not adding any square footage, but just reconfiguring the rooms inside. But the garage will be converted to a multi-purpose space or a writer's studio as well.
That is a brilliant use of that little tiny space.
Which kind of space?
Shifting the stairs
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, and then shifting
I mean, it
the
just
door
changes
a little
everything.
bit. Right.
And shifting the kitchen over changes everything.
Yeah, so we're, that doesn't really change the elevations, but yes, I think that we really wanted to just stay within that volume and,
It's really
and
smart.
reapportion spaces. So the existing front porch, we're proposing to remove the existing aluminum windows, remove the brick veneer that's on the knee wall, and replace those aluminum wraps. And I'll talk more about the materials that we're proposing in a moment. And on the garage, what you'll see from the street that we'd like to do is remove the garage door and make it look less like a garage and have some windows on that elevation. Then on the next page, you'll see on the second floor, the existing house has 2 bedrooms and one sort of water, WC that's part of the bedroom. And we're adding a 3rd bedroom, which they need very much, and an upstairs full bathroom, and that would be on the rear of the house. So we're basically adding 6'2" by 26 feet, and then this little bump out that you see that's 1'6" by 8. So the square footage of the existing house is 1,130. The addition would be 170 square feet. The porch is 156 square feet, and the garage, we're adding some usable square feet, 412. So the total scope would be 1,868 square feet. So we feel that it's keeping it still in the small house range. And plus there'll be more headroom on the 2nd floor. So on the next page is the roof plan, existing and proposed. And we wanted to avoid having like one big blocky shed dormer. So the idea was to have a combination of shed and gable and dormer. So on sheet 804, you can see the rear elevation where we're blending the shed and the gable end. So this mass that's on the left here is that bay that I was telling you about in the bedroom that protrudes 1'8", and that balances out the mass of that existing bathroom. And although you won't see this from the public view, it was important for me to bring this up because it gives you that headroom, but then the blocky dormer doesn't go all the way out, as far as it would have, because this bay is pushed in a little bit, so you won't see it as much on the street. So the section shows the added headroom in the back, and the sketch that I have on sheet 808, if you flip back a little bit, shows the 3-dimensional drawing, but that's seen from the rear, and then the proposed on the right, which has the combination of shed and gable end dormers. So now if we move to the front of the house, on sheet A04A, that's the existing west elevation, and if you flip over to A05, that's the proposed. So here, we're proposing to remove the existing aluminum windows, vinyl windows and aluminum fascias and aluminum trim from the dormers, and have those be double hung windows, 4/1. Those would be wood windows. I actually did bring a sample of the windows that we're proposing, the LePage window there. And the great details and the little gable ends there, again, we're gonna try to go back to what they were before, more or less. The existing roof will remain, the front porch will remain enclosed, and our proposal is we would remove the brick and replace it with the river rocks. And then the windows would also be replaced by wood windows.
That's super interesting, thinking about, I can't remember what the family name is, but there are so many properties along Parsonage that have, from the 30s and 40s, sort of these big river stones stuck in wall, as opposed to stones laid flat, dry laid, or these up-facing rounded stones.
There's a whole bunch of it on B Street.
There's a whole bunch of it on B Street too.
It was like
And Main Street.
Cosentino or something.
Cosentino.
What is it, it's me,
Down.
down there, the corner, all that stuff.
But that's an interesting little, you've chosen it for design aesthetic, but it ties into a different time in the village in an interesting way.
Oh, okay. So the next drawing shows as if you would remove the porch, what you see behind, and I do that because the porch is gonna be glass, so you'll see through it, and it's basically the board and batten continuing behind there.
Are these operable windows on the front?
Those are operable, yes, and all of the windows on the body of the house will be, you know, your typical double hung, casement, awning, double pane windows. But because this is a 3-season room,
Mm-hmm.
the idea is to have, and I have pictures later on, to have something lighter, like more like porch-like,
Mm-hmm.
where it's single pane and wood, and to be on, it's sliding.
Sliding.
It's sliding, yeah. We thought about awnings, we thought about, you know, having the double hungs, but when you're in the porch, it really is, it's nice to have that
Yeah.
lighter feeling, so it really feels like a porch, because this space is not gonna be heated or air conditioned, so it doesn't need to be weather tight. So going to the 2 side elevations, which is what you'll really see more from the street, you have the vertical board and batten. On the south elevation, those 3 windows are replacement windows, and this small window is the window in the bedroom. And you see the side of the porch there. And you also see that horizontal
Which drawing are you on?
plank. Drawing A6, this proposed south elevation. And so this is the existing, and this is the proposed. So you see that the addition is added here. And then the north elevation is very similar, just flipped the other way. But here you'll see that small window at the landing of the stairs, which is labeled B. And then also so it's a combination of double hung encasement windows and awning windows, depending on the window. But everything will be the same detail with the flat casing and the historic sill. This drawing shows, I mean, this sample actually has the brick mold, not the flat casing, but we're going to be doing the flat casing with the historic sill. So if you go then to the last sheet, shows the garage, and the drawing number 4 is what you'll see from the street, where that we're replacing that garage door with the 3 windows. Those are awning units, ganged up with the flat casing and the historic sill, and then vertical board and batten there as well. That door, which you will catch glimpses of, is the original wood door, which would be restored.
What's the header that's on
That is actually this piece that's coming, if you look at the, it's not really a header, it's a section cut through a piece of that overhang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's
that-
basically this,
Right, it's
like,
that
yeah.
piece of,
it's kind of like a,
Oh,
yeah. And that piece, which you also do catch glimpses of, is covered in aluminum, and that will be, aluminum removed, and we're gonna put underneath it tongue, beadboard, and then have the wood fascia there added on. So it acts as sort of a covering.
Yeah, little breeze one.
Yeah. Mhm. And on the side elevations, you'll also see let's go back a second to the elevations on the side, sheet A06. I just wanted to point out that we will have the corner boards are the corner boards are 6 inches, 1 by 6, wood flat. The window trims are 1 by 4, and the fascias are 7-inch wood with the rake molding, with the open rakes and exposed purlins. You don't really see them in this drawing though. And once we remove the vinyl, we'll be able to see the condition and the extent of the existing vertical board and battens. But because so much of the house was added onto, we're concerned that if we want to restore what's there, we're going to be adding so much new, and then it's not going to really match. And there's also the lead paint issue, which our contractor brought up.
Yeah.
If we had to do abatement, that would be a lot. So maybe the best thing to do is to take all of it off and start again, so that everything matches. But we'll see what happens when we uncover it.
how are you insulating from the interior? You're not changing the kitchen is new, has new,
Well, the current insulation is brick. It's not like the house was originally insulated with masonry.
so it's got like nogging in it,
I'm sorry?
like nogging in between the joists, what do you mean?
The house has brick like the original house doesn't have like that insulation, the brick is the insulation, like a masonry.
In between
Mm-hmm.
in between the joists.
Are you gonna be able
Post
to
and
meet,
beam?
The post and beam.
are you gonna be able to meet the energy code?
Well, what we're doing is, with what's been added, what we're adding is we're going to be, that's gonna meet the energy code. But because we're not adding more than a certain percentage of the house,
50%?
then we're adding 175 square feet. So we don't have to bring the entire house up to code, it would be crazy, we'd have to, basically demolish the whole house. So that's why, that's the other reason why we wanted to,
I don't think you wanna do
Small.
that.
what's that?
I don't think you wanna do that.
No, so if we go to the, packet of the catalog,
So then just one moment, I know your neighbor ran into a problem with his front dormers in terms of the size of the
Egress,
window.
Yeah.
so let's go back to the plan and I'll show you where all the egress windows are.
Okay.
So the existing, you go to the second floor, and go to the existing second floor.
Mhm.
So we went over this, mine and Joe had a question about that. So these two bedrooms here have existing egress windows. And we're gonna be making use of those in bedroom number 1 and bedroom number 2. Bedroom number 3 is gonna have the egress out the back. So, did you see how, like, these two are existing egress? These two are existing egress, and so we're gonna use that existing egress window to get out that way.
Mhm.
We're gonna use this existing egress window to go out that way. And then the new bedroom number 3, we get egress going out the back. And that's gonna be, if you look at the elevation.
Okay, so 2 goes out the side, 1 goes out the side, and 3 goes out the back.
Exactly,
So the existing windows on the front and those little dormers is irrelevant.
Right.
For
we don't need those for egress.
For egress purposes.
Right.
Great.
Yeah,
It's good, you can keep the scale, which is great.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you look at the catalog cuts, so this is the LePage, wood, they're all wood windows with simulated divided lights. I used the LePage for Danny LaCastro's house on Carrot Street, and they're wonderful windows.
Someone else came in with those too, I think it was,
Justin Codere uses.
Justin, yeah, he likes
Okay.
them,
These
yeah.
are these are from,
Yeah, they're on
From
the
Patty
hardback,
and
which is
Matt
its
have
folding.
Yeah,
I
that's
need
right.
that, yeah. So this is the double hung, this is the casement. These patio doors you don't see from the street, 'cause they're on the back of the
Mhm.
garage, and that's the detail. So page 43 has the image, the idea of the porch. These are, going to be made to match the LePage details, but LePage, doesn't make a sliding window, so these will be custom made, probably by Parrot Windows. Then page 44 shows the pine board and batten, 1.5 inch batten and a 12-inch wide board. And then the river rocks would be the small scale, 3 to 5 inches. I brought a few here.
Oh.
They're from Bedford Stone.
Back on 43, which interior is the one that you're proposing?
It'll probably be more similar to the bottom two, because the top one is, those aren't sliding.
Right,
Probably the
right.
bottom left would be, the most similar. But, because these are being made, I don't have a drawing for them yet,
Yeah.
yeah.
And these are all sliding windows.
Yes, those are sliding.
Hmm.
You can see how they're on, like they're offset to each
On the
other.
track, yeah, you
Yeah,
can barely
on the
see it,
track,
yeah.
yeah. The picture on the right is also sliding too. Okay. So the river rock. So the river rock also acts as a backdrop to a landscape plan. On page 47, they would like to remove that concrete that comes right up to the house
yay.
and replace it with a garden and have stepping stones from the sidewalk to the front storm door and some garden path stones along the way. Then the roof, we're gonna be matching the existing roof. We still don't know exactly what brand it is, but this is what I think it is, so until we get a piece of it and bring it to the store, it's gonna be hard to know exactly what and what color too. We still haven't, determined that. The gutters that we're adding would be half-round aluminum, finished to be determined. And the storm door in the front would be a wood storm door, painted with, a convertible screen where it could go from screen to storm. And we chose this countryside number 55 because that matches the door that's
On the garage.
on, well, yes, on the garage and also the front door of the house, where it has those
Mhm.
2 panels on the bottom, yeah. And page 51 is the light fixture we're proposing for the garage, which you will see from the street. And then page 52 shows, some of the profiles of the rake and the drip cap and the sill. And if you go to the last 2 sheets on your 11 by 17 set, A09 and A10, these are, in progress, the section details. And this first one is a typical section through the side of the house. So if you look at the set of drawings, there's a section cut. On A06, there's a section cut to the side. So that's a typical condition where you have the open rake and the rake molding at the top with the wood fascia board, the drip cap, wood casing, the wood window, the historic sill, the siding, and then that horizontal skirt board at the bottom. On the next sheet, there's a wall section, the typical condition at the front. On the left is what's existing with the concrete block wall, the existing concrete sill, and the brick, so, and that aluminum window. So we're gonna be removing the brick and putting in the river rocks, and then you see the sliding panels, which will also be set in more slightly, and then above is the open E. The existing concrete block wall will remain. So that's the point that we brought it to, and we're looking to you for some guidance and some input, and, we can make this house wonderful.
I think it's super exciting.
They're excited about it.
I love that you haven't done a big shed across the back.
Exactly.
I'm so excited about that.
I was so afraid it would be.
I love that you can keep the proportion of the dormers on the front. It just makes for such a lively roof line. I mean, this is Nelsonville. It's visible from Nelsonville, and we can't control what happens in Nelsonville, but Nelsonville's gonna get a great rear elevation of this house. I think also the board and batten is super lovely. Bringing the house back to its origin. And historic pictures.
They're in
I've got it.
the green
Yeah,
tab.
right. The green tab.
I knew you'd like the tabs, Kathleen.
So that's all.
When you're going through this much material,
I know,
it
it's
is
a lot.
so
It's like a
helpful.
book.
Yeah, it is.
It is super helpful.
Well, the one thing which I appreciate is the fact that you did a lot of research. as far
Yeah,
as what-
absolutely.
And it's organized.
Here we go.
And I don't know what other input we can give you, I mean, it seems to be,
Some really,
all you need is
Good
an
shape.
application form
Yeah.
and you have the package.
Yeah, I can look.
I love the sliding windows. On the front for capturing that they're reducing the bulk on the front, and making it feel more like an open porch.
Mhm.
I do think the river stone is a really interesting way to tie in some 20th century Cold Spring. Is there particular feedback you're looking for? I mean, I'm delighted with all of it.
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
In comparison to what we normally get, this is certainly
It's really well prepared.
above workshop
Yeah.
level.
Great.
And so the board and batten on the building, on the garage is gonna be applied on top of the same, yeah.
Yes, they're gonna have, spacers so that it's not directly applied to the, and then on the inside will be sheetrock. And they'll be insulating that on the inside, so that wall's gonna be really thick.
Yeah, well, we probably should have some sort of vapor barrier put on but you wouldn't see that, so therefore I can't comment on it, but
Yeah, we
just
had,
using
our
the top
contractor
of my
did
head.
an estimate, and he had this very detailed explanation of what the garage was gonna have. And so, I'm pretty covered with it.
It's funny, it's not a huge, it's mostly material changes.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, not a big,
I guess the question that I have is that it's fairly clear what you would like to do. And I guess how much of that is dependent on what you actually find underneath?
Yeah.
That's a question.
Yeah,
How much-
that was my question too.
Right, well, like for instance, the dormers, like if you look at the historic picture of the dormer, and you look at what's existing now, my guess is that they boxed it all in, right?
Right.
But what if we uncover the boxing and there's nothing there, then we have to rebuild it, right? But, or what if we uncover it and the paint is peeling and it's lead paint and we don't wanna touch it, I don't know, it's, I'd love to be able to keep some of the original, but if not, then we have the details, you know, to replace.
I guess the one thing, because, you know, lead paint is everywhere. I mean, obviously, we've got a village of old buildings, and so they all have lead paint. And so the question I have is that even if you're demolishing it, you're still gonna have to deal with that lead paint. So I'm not sure, I understand the contractor's concern, but mitigating lead paint is not that difficult to do. I mean, realistically, for something like this, obviously anything that's loose has gotta be vacuumed up.
Right, well, he saw a difference between, like, let's say, you know, scraping or removing. So in other words, if that rake molding is all peely and stuff, he's gonna have to get in there and sand it and scrape it. And that brings up a lot of friable stuff, whereas just removing it, click, click, put it in the trash, he thought that would be exposing less. I don't know. It's gonna be, I mean, would it be better in the application if I just said we're gonna have new everywhere? Or should I just say to be determined, or how should I put it
I
in the
think
application?
we would prefer that you keep as much of the original fabric as you can.
Sure.
And so I think that,
so we've asked other people to do that.
Well, and it just from a preservation philosophy.
of course.
Yeah, I think in the
Of course.
case of 35 Market Street, which is the board and batten in the early part of the book, I know that what they're going to be doing is removing all of the board and batten, and it sounded like Paul was saying they're going to remove it all and they're going to have it remediated somewhere else and then
Oh.
brought back and
Mhm.
reinstalled.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
Yeah, but in
and
that case, they're
They're also taking the building apart.
taking the whole building apart.
well, yes.
but
But I think that,
yeah,
I guess it raises the point, you know, depending on the condition that it's in, when you take everything down and you assess it, if there's a way to maintain, I don't know, I think you're gonna have to really look at it, but if there's a way to get as much of it off of the building that's usable, and maybe if it's even as much as condensing it all to the front elevation,
Oh,
or
I see.
We've had
Right.
other applicants.
possibly
do
even
that.
just using it, like moving it all onto the garage, or if there's a way that it can be
So it's
retained
not
as much
right
as
up against,
possible.
right, so it's not right up against the new, sure.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, if I remember correctly, mitigating lead paint, one of the options is encapsulation. In other words, you remove everything that's friable, that's gonna come off anyway, but then if you paint over it, then essentially you're sealing that lead paint in.
Right,
Mhm.
The whole idea is to not have pieces of the lead paint floating around.
Sure.
Because that's where, you know, essentially you have the problem. So I think that, you know, maybe you can do some investigation on the, you know, the different mitigation, lead paint mitigation procedures.
alright. will do.
All right, is the lead paint the only issue that would change what you're proposing?
And the
Well,
condition.
Actually, what I wrote on the drawings, on the demolition plan, I thought would sort of cover it. Let's see. I wrote, I had a note, maybe it's not in the demolition, it's in the proposed, sorry. Yeah, on page A04, I said, note, after demolition, assess condition and extent of uncovered vertical wood siding on original house. But I didn't say anything about the lead paint on this. So I have that as like a general note, and then,
Do you have, is the, so the board and batten is on the front facade, but on the side, they put up the vinyl siding?
It's
No,
vinyl.
it's
Just
vinyl
on the
everywhere.
front?
Yeah, it's vinyl everywhere right now.
Yeah.
And the
Even other
existing,
doors.
right, the old house had the vertical board and batten, and when you look at the footprint on the historic map, it's a rectangle. And it's a rectangle that is, if this is the existing drawing, it's a rectangle that is basically the second floor, right? So if you carry that, if you carry that line down, it's like this wall here. So so my guess is that the kitchen and the bathroom, laundry, and part of the dining room were added. And so the existing board and batten is only gonna be here, here, and here. That's my guess. So it's not a lot.
But you don't know when they were added.
Early.
I don't know, and I don't even know if that's, because if you look at the historic map, it's a rectangle
Mm-hmm.
with a little bump out in the back. History.
Might have been,
Like a little
Privy.
bathroom, right. So, I don't know, that's what we are sort of gonna have to guess about. Oh, here's the map. Right, and, you know, whether that little rectangle really represents what it was, I'm not
Oh.
sure.
Mm.
Like the proportions of it. I mean,
yeah, looks like all the houses.
But if you look at the neighbor's house in the historic pictures, you can see that it's not very deep, right? Like here, this view here is like the perfect thing to look at. So if you're standing on the existing porch of 24 Parsonage looking next door, where the gable ends is where the house ended. So if you do that to 24 Parsonage and you carry that same line, assuming that it's the same, it really ended here. So that part of that dining room was added, and then definitely the kitchen was added, and the bathroom, laundry.
Yeah, that
What is
makes
this thing,
sense.
what is this thing that
They
you
added
need to
plumbing.
probe in the existing kitchen?
Oh, that is like a boxed in, we think it's a pipe
Oh,
of some sort, so we just don't know if we can remove it or not.
is there a bathroom upstairs or something?
Well, the bathroom that they have upstairs is
Oh,
in the
there's
front
that
of the
little powder
house.
room.
So,
Right.
so you're
Yeah.
gonna be able to get rid of that
And
sewer
that
vent
has,
on the front.
that has a bump, and the vent out the front will be able to get rid of that. Yeah, so this chase in the living room, that we're gonna be able to remove, because that's enclosing that waste pipe right now, yeah. But we don't know what that is in the kitchen.
So what else do we need to, address tonight? This is,
No, I mean, to me, it's clear what the proposal is, I think, you know.
Well,
And the only thing is that as long as, so that we don't get into any issues, if things don't turn out the way you're assuming, and there are changes, then you understand you have to come back to us, right?
Okay,
Okay.
so is there, our next meeting is the 14th of March. I mean, I would consider this a complete application tonight. This, the properties to the south and across the street have been public hearings.
Well, I guess that.
Did they have work done to the front or just to the
This
back?
one had, right next door was a public hearing.
They had front, back, side, and everything.
Yeah, everywhere.
Do we have a referral from the building department?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I didn't bring the copies, cause,
It's,
yeah,
he sent it.
okay.
All right, I mean, you know, if, all right, first question is, do we think we need a public hearing on this?
Yes. And I'm saying do it as part of the monthly meeting.
For that, yeah, for that neighborhood, I think it's a significant
All right.
change.
And consistent with what we've done with
Next
neighboring
door.
properties,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Does anyone wanna move secret on this?
Oh,
Yeah.
we can do that.
well, yeah, we also need an application form.
Yeah, I have all that filled out.
Well, filled out.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's all ready to go, I just didn't know. Kathleen told me this was just like an informal
Well,
workshop.
actually,
yeah.
you
This
asked
is
for a
the-
workshop,
this
so
is
we
the
were
most
expecting what a
formal
workshop
thing.
usually is. This is like
This is
full
the best-
application.
This is the best workshop I've
Ever.
ever seen.
Okay. The only other application I'd ever done was the Parrot Street project, and then we
Mm,
went straight to
that's right.
meeting, we didn't do workshop, so I didn't know what the workshop steps.
Oh, Okay, so let's assume that,
Some
you know,
folks
we
have
have all the
it.
paperwork, and if we don't, we can pull it together, so, do I have a motion? Well, I guess first,
But to
let's,
go straight
let's,
to public hearing, we have to give notice to the neighbors and stuff,
That's
that might
what-
take
that's
some
what Rashawn's
time.
looking at the
Yeah, I
calendar
think
for,
we
and
should
the
look
calendar.
at the
So
next
if we
month.
receive the application on the 14th, we could have a public hearing on the 28th
Of March.
of March.
but we have the application. Let's assume we have the application.
But we don't have
Well,
an
no.
application.
I only submitted a building permit application, I haven't submitted the,
C of A.
right,
Our app.
Our
Yeah.
application, yeah.
I haven't.
So, I guess my question is that, do we really care?
I wasn't on the board when we did the other applications on Parrot Street. I would not,
Parsonage.
Parsonage.
Mhm.
Looking at this as it's drawn and presented, I would not advocate for having a public hearing.
What about, what about across the street? I can't think of their name. The
Boisvert.
French gentleman, yes.
Well, there,
We had a public hearing
was-
for that building?
Did we have a public hearing?
yeah, sure.
Yes, so you were
We
here
had
for
it for
that.
Hardman, we had it for Boisvert.
He was not,
we
you were
had
not
it
here
for
for
Mesa.
Hardman, but you were here
Right.
for Boisvert.
Yeah. I
It's
think it's
completely
fine to have a
consistent
public
with,
hearing.
it's completely consistent with
Yeah, I'd rather
I-
be consistent.
conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the question really is,
Can they do notice? That's what we're trying to figure
Right.
out now.
Well,
So
we're
they
not
need,
in any
neighbors
big
need
rush.
5 days, neighbors need, no, but if you can get it over with, that's one less thing on our agenda, cause it just gets
That's
busy as
true.
we go into spring.
Okay,
So they need 5 days notice before the public hearing. So if you get your application in, you've got all your supporting material. You
Right.
need the cover sheet,
great.
basically.
So, do I have to give them all
Jeff.
these 6 copies?
no, I mean, we
Hmm.
have the copies and
Okay.
we'll hang on to these copies. This becomes your, the documentation for your application. The only thing that you need to fill out are the application
Mhm.
forms.
We have those filled out, yep.
Um,
And the fee,
That's already been given,
oh, okay.
yeah,
For the building permit.
both. He collected both,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so, the question is, do we have time to do, notifications for public hearings?
We would, I
The
mean,
14th.
we'd have two publication, as long as it's posted on Monday morning to the PCNR, we'd have 2
It
publications.
can be a separate public hearing notice, separate from the agenda.
And for the public hearing, I would need to either do a PowerPoint or present boards so the public could see, correct? Okay, so I could just take all this stuff and like glue it onto boards, do I have to do a PowerPoint or
No.
not?
No.
Okay.
We don't like PowerPoint.
Okay. Thank God, my son wanted to do it for me, he's like, I'll do your
I mean,
PowerPoint,
if he
Mom,
wants
knows
to,
more than
go
I do
crazy.
about all this stuff.
The boards are
Good
easier
kid.
because then people can like move them around and look at them. and do
That's
everything.
true.
I'm saying that we need to, it'd have to be published twice
Uh-huh.
in the paper.
Right, so if,
So if we get the ad
Notice,
by Friday, or I guess by Monday morning, what's the cutoff?
the PCNR is Monday morning.
Right. So Monday the 5th, it would publish on the 7th and the 14th, and the
Yes.
14th would be the public hearing.
Right.
Yes,
And so for the neighbors, it's the neighbors all around, so
But
next
not
door,
Nelsonville.
not Nelson, to the two next door, do I have to do the one across the street too?
Yep.
The
Yeah.
notice, so just those three neighbors.
Oh, 3 or 4, usually it's,
you've got,
One on either side,
well, yes, but you'll wanna do Gerland and whoever
Oh,
the
Sarah.
house is with the Irish flag across the street.
Judy.
But, I mean,
Judy
you've got,
Baldwin.
okay,
Yeah,
and
it's
those
sort of,
have to be delivered, by
Certified mail.
certified mail.
Jeff will
Yeah.
talk you through that, the
Okay.
clerk will
Yeah.
talk you through
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I remember that, okay, so I can do that this week, I can do it tomorrow, let's just do it.
well, I mean, the thing, usually the thing that we try to do is that whatever notice is being published in the paper, that is what you send out to the adjoining neighbors.
So if you get the application into Jeff,
Mm-hmm,
Jeff will ping me when that's received,
okay,
then he and I put together the public notice, he sends it to the paper, and then he gives you a copy, and that's what you
Oh.
photocopy and give to the neighbors.
I see,
But it can still be done
right,
by the end of the week.
okay,
It should be done by the end.
Yeah, I mean, the PCNR's not till Monday morning, so
Right.
we're good. But let's collect back in all of these copies so that we have the file copies.
and you have that
That's right.
6th one,
I have the sixth
Right.
one here.
okay. And then, great, and so I'll, for the public hearing, I'll just mount these, the bigger scale. And
Yeah.
then some
That works.
pictures, I don't have to do every single picture. I
no,
just-
and I'd bring those samples if you could as well.
Yes, I'll keep those, I'll ask them to keep, I'll ask them to keep those.
All right, does anybody have any comments or any objections to anything that was presented?
I don't, I guess my only question, but I think it makes sense, is when you're dealing with these rocks and you're coming to the corners of that porch, it's just gonna be laid like by a skilled mason? I mean, there's not really any way of like terminating those quarters or anything, cause it's just
No.
loose pieces of
I mean,
stone.
if you look at the pictures of the,
Are we missing something?
Look at the historic ones, the historic
I
ones.
think
turn
Oh, those are
corners.
hers.
let's see,
Yeah,
town
that's,
village.
there's no like trim piece or anything, so it's all just,
No,
yeah.
no, it just turns.
Little ad
let's
hoc.
see. Well, you can kind of see that one, so
Right.
it just kind of, yeah. just turns.
I mean, the charm of these river stone
Right,
porches
I
around
just think it's
town is
interesting.
that it, it's a little hodgepodge.
Right, it wasn't,
Well, it's high.
And they're
It's-
full, and they're
That's why
full
it's
rocks.
charming.
they are,
Mhm.
but
They're
they've
not cut.
since they're the
Yeah.
3 and 5 inch, they fit into,
Mhm.
because the brick is, so
Right.
deep, and so they fit into that, what that would be, and, they'll
Make it work.
put the grout in between and.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Great.
Right, so
Thank
I
Madeline.
will get on tomorrow morning and get the application to Jeff and we'll get it all squared
So
away.
if you
Excellent.
copy me when you don't have to, you
Mhm.
can, if you copy me when you send it to him, then I know it's here.
Copy, you
Copy
want-
me when you communicate with Jeff, when you
I'm just gonna bring it to,
oh,
I'll
okay.
bring it to him because he's
let me
in the
know then.
morning. He'll be here in the morning, so I'll just bring it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll hand deliver it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done,
Thank
thank you for
you.
loving
Yes.
this house. It's so exciting to get these little cottages and,
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a long way to go, but
well,
we'll get there.
It'll be worth it.
that's for you
That
to
front
worry
porch
about.
is gonna be
That
killer.
front porch
Looking forward to sipping tea with Maya on the front porch someday.
Yes.
is- Oh, she's a mint julep girl, you'll have more fun than tea.
Alright, so then we'll see you on the 20th. We hope.
14th.
14th,
Oh, I
second,
thought-
second Wednesday.
I thought you said the public hearing was on the 20th.
Oh, no, we were speculating of 14th.
Okay, 5 Third Street.
It's the other uber organized applicant.
This stuff right here?
Like a banner night with Madeline and Kathy.
I don't know, Madeline's hard not to follow, and I did a PowerPoint, so don't have.
I'm like, oh my god, I did a
I was saying
PowerPoint.
that I think PowerPoints are hard for public hearings because people want to keep having
Very
to
nice
flip
job.
back
Oh,
through
on
all of the.
Oh, yeah, 'cause
Clips
they
are
need
on.
you-
Yeah.
Whose clips these are?
They could
Here.
be from the,
I'll pop, I'll
I
make
keep
sure
finding
that.
more and more to throw in my bag.
Oh yeah, those came from Jeff.
And this is my daughter, I know everybody, I think
I don't know.
I'm Kathy Rosanna, I'm not there, Andrea, right?
Yeah, Andrea, yeah, sorry.
And we met at
Sean.
school
Yeah, we
stuff.
did a
Yes.
while
A
ago.
while ago. And everybody else
Maggie.
I know, cause you see me, and Maggie's my daughter, she wanted to see the process.
Oh.
Oh, she's regretting it.
I
I
know.
know.
Quarter of 11.
She just wanted to stay up late.
That's what I think too. So, we are doing an addition hopefully on 5 Fair. And I wanted to just come in front of you and kind of give you a sense of what the project is all about. And then get your thoughts and opinions on, what we need when we come in front of you. We probably won't come in front of you in March, I think, or more April. Depending on what you guys need. So if you turn to the second page, this is just an overview of the project. So we are looking at replacing the back porch on the deck. We're gonna extend it to the existing width of the house. And, we're thinking about changing the orientation of the stairs, so that's something that I wanna talk to you guys about. We're gonna be extending the existing kitchen to the existing width of the house. And we are going to be building a second floor over the kitchen. We're gonna move the existing propane tank beneath the new deck. We're looking at installing AC units on the brick wall side of the house. And if you look at 5 Fair Street, the driveway is on the right-hand side. We're next to Les Vachon on the left-hand side, and that's that giant brick wall that they had there. So that's what I'm referring to when I mentioned that. We now have Bilco doors that are at the back of the house. We're gonna move the Bilco doors to the brick wall side of the house. We are hoping to replace the fence that's at the back of the yard, and that's between Fair Street and the street behind us. Stone Street, I always forget the name of that street. And then we're looking at adding 2 windows on the driveway side of the house where the dining room is, because we're actually gonna be losing the window for the dining room when we extend the kitchen out. So I just wanted to, before we move on to the next, I wanted to show you existing pictures of the structure, just to kind of give you a better sense. So if you look at this first side here, this is where we're gonna be looking at adding the 2 windows. That's where the dining room is today. And then you can see here where the line's in, that's actually the height of the house. And we have the architectural plans, which I can show you as well, just to show you kind of, that's gonna move out and it's gonna go up. So if you look at the second pictures, this is just a picture from the backyard looking at the driveway side of the house, just to give you a little bit more perspective of where those windows are gonna be. And then you see the window on the right-hand side over here, that's the window that we're gonna be losing because we're gonna be pushing the house out. If you look on the next page, this is the side of the house by the brick wall by Les Vachon. And you'll see 2 circles in here. The first circle close to the white lattice and deck there, that's where the new Bilco is gonna go. And then right behind that are the AC units. So as we get further in, I do have some questions for you guys as to what you're gonna wanna see, because like this section, you won't see it from Fair Street and you won't see it from anywhere else. And pretty much the back of the house as well, there's only one small sliver. So I wanted to share it all with you and just see if ultimately you guys wanna have a say on
I'm just trying to orient myself, sorry. Okay, so this gate leads to Fair Street.
Yep, so this is the
the
front.
back of Le Bichon. Yeah, I
Right,
know this house.
yeah. Yep.
Next to Ken.
There's a
Yeah.
floor plan in the other packet.
Okay, no, I'm looking at this and I started to get confused.
You know, I get disoriented on it. Yeah, so that gate that you're looking
Yeah,
at. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And I can figure out if that's
No,
the
the
house
house, I
at all.
walk past it all the time.
This is the back of the house, what you're seeing today. So this porch that you're seeing here, this is what we wanna tear down and replace. And then right here is where the edge of the kitchen is. So that is also where we wanna push that out. And then on top of the roof here, we wanna build that up so that we can extend the kids' bedrooms up there. And then if you move on to the next picture, I just wanted to give you guys kind of a closer snapshot of really where all that activity is gonna be taken. So where the porch is pushing out, you'll see the Bilko doors there, you'll see the, dining room window that's gonna be moving away. And then the arrows are just showing that we're gonna be pushing that whole structure up.
So in other words, basically what you wanna do is fill this in and move
Exactly.
it up.
Exactly, so net, I think it's about 200 square feet that we're gonna add onto the back of the house. And then just this last picture here, that's the gate, that's the fence between our yard and our neighbor on Stone Street. It's been there since we bought the house, it's fallen apart, so I just wanna talk to you as well about what we would need to look at to replace that, cause our hope is to replace it completely in kind.
Is that your fence or some, the adjoining property?
It's ours. Yeah, I talked to the guy behind us, yeah. And he's totally fine with us replacing it, he just wants to make sure we go through the process of doing that. Would it be helpful to show you at this point the architectural drawings?
Yeah.
Yeah? Alphonse, my architect, has he dropped these off today, so, so I'm not gonna spend time kind of showing you the interior part, cause I know, but so this is the existing structure today, just to give you a sense of like, this is the kitchen, that's where the Bilko door is, and that's where the porch is. So like Al said, we literally are looking at just filling that in, building up, and then moving that over. Now, these are just this just shows the existing elevations of the property today. And I figured you guys will be especially interested kind of in what is happening at the back of the house.
I can't think of where,
Yeah.
from, other than standing on the sidewalk and looking down your driveway, I can't think of a
No.
location that this is seen from the public right of way. Where on Stone Street
So
can you
the
actually
only,
see
and
it?
that's what I wanted to ask you guys about, cause if you go back
Well,
on
yeah,
Stone
here, but-
Street, the only part you see is the upper level of the house. So you don't see the porch, you see right above that, and it's literally like this much space that you can see if you're standing on Stone Street, at the neighbor's house and their driveway behind us.
In their driveway.
Yeah, like if you're literally standing on the sidewalk right there,
Oh,
by
sorry,
their
go ahead.
driveway, you have literally about this much
Yeah.
of the second level of the house that you can see.
Okay.
So that's where I was so torn up, I didn't know if you still wanna see the whole thing, or you only wanna see above that, or if
Well,
there's
we need to
exceptions
see,
that are.
we need to especially see, this is the
right.
most visible.
Right,
Right
so
here.
everything
Right.
from the, everything from
It's gonna be
the,
the most visible.
exactly, so I figured, so that's really the kitchen, the new kitchen structure and the addition of the second floor.
I mean, I would like to walk on Stone and see how much of of the back of the house, of the pediment, the gable
Yeah.
end, that you can actually see right now. And maybe you can talk through what happens here where these returns are when you
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah, I'll show you guys. Yeah.
'Cause I'm not sure that there's gonna be much visible at all.
So this is gonna be the alterations. So basically, when you're looking at the back of the house, it's gonna look, so that upper level, it's gonna look exactly the same, only
Yeah.
it's being pushed out back into the backyard a little bit more.
So this is where the original house
Exactly.
is.
So in other words, the whole pediment's gonna move out.
Exactly.
Okay.
So everything that we add to the back of the house is gonna be exactly what's
So do
there
you
today.
have the existing rear elevation?
Yes.
Oh, so it does have the returns on the back,
Yes.
and it has those quarter round landscape.
I'm not understanding. Oh, this?
That's the rear.
Right.
Mhm.
And this is kind of a side view of the rear as well.
And that's just gonna be a trellis,
Yes, that's our hope, is just that on the back of the deck, when we rebuild that, is instead of putting a roof there, that we, like at Seven Fair, they have that kind of pergola in the back, we wanna do something similar.
Could I just look at the
Yeah.
floor plans for a
Yep.
second?
Yeah, you wanna see the existing or the new?
The proposed. Yeah, so the only thing that's really giving me pause on the rear elevation is just those two ganged windows.
And they're ganged on the dining room, on the lower level
Yes.
too,
Yep.
I had the same thought, Sean.
On the,
Yeah, when he adds them, when we add onto the dining room, they're together like that too, yep.
I think it's more obvious on the upper
right,
floor, the dining room doesn't bother me so much.
well, here on this side, the other side, they have this separation. These,
Yes.
these are
These are
existing
existing
windows.
those are existing windows on
And they
that.
have this separation
Right.
between them.
Well,
Is
what's
it
the
a
existing
mullion?
plan?
So on the
The
existing,
existing
the
plan.
existing
Is there a
plan
wall
today,
there?
there's a wall, like, there's no changes on this side of the house,
Right.
Mhm.
but, when we make the renovations, they're exactly what they're saying, so that's what it looks like. Today, this is just a blank wall, like, it's just a wall with
This
no
is
window.
totally new, two totally new windows that are
Right.
being added to this elevation.
Yeah,
Well, is there any reason why the new windows can't look like the old?
No, if I go back to Victor and tell him that he has to separate them and they have to match the other one, there should be no issue with doing that at all.
I
And
think
and
that
if
would be
if that's a
that
problem
was
for
it.
if there's a problem for upstairs as well, then I can just tell him that, he has to separate those out too.
Right.
It just is it's kind of one of those things that's a
Carry-
dead giveaway of being a really recent change to
Yep.
a building is those like ganged up windows. And then the other thing too, and this is to the board, you know, typically on a lot of these extensions that we've seen, particularly those which are of a really similar bulk, we talked about this on Andrea and Evan's house,
Mhm.
is having some sort of a shadow line separation between the existing and the new addition to prevent a really long wall or just to kind of insinuate the history of the building. In this case, I don't think it's really as necessary because I think the windows that are going to be added kind of mitigate that.
It's also not,
It's not
a
huge.
huge,
It's
Yeah.
a smaller mass and it's not built into the hill going down, so it didn't create like. four
Right, it doesn't
stories.
give you
My house
that
had
thing,
more
which is
like
like-
a monolith.
Yeah,
That,
where's-
that and
it's
also
totally flat there.
it's the same, you know, the only place you're adding mass is on this corner. On the other side, it continues
Yeah.
all the way across.
Right.
That's true.
And what's the material?
So right now, we have cedar shingles on the
Mhm.
outside of the house, and like all the trim and the cornices and everything is all wood.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan is to do exactly that.
Just the same kind
Right,
of
and the
reveal.
windows are all, double hung aluminum clad wood, and we're gonna replace them exactly the same.
Yeah, I don't really have any other. Questions.
who gets the double windows, Maggie? In the bedroom?
Jack.
Jack.
That's a point. Actually, the whole reason why we're doing this is for Maggie. So she can have a bigger room in a room with a closet in it.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Wow.
big deal in the village. And just, I have a page in here on materials, just as I mentioned, current are aluminum clad, outside they're wooden, they have the 2x2 muttons. The replacement will be exactly the same. The siding and the trim, the cedar shingles, we'll have the cedar shingles again. The trim is gonna mirror what is in place today. And then just from the fences perspective, we'd like to replace it exactly to what it is there today, so the cedar.
Well, that's a challenge, because what you have there is a stockade
I know,
fence,
I
although
didn't know what
I
to-
don't know
yeah.
what I don't know how visible it is from anywhere.
It's, you can't see it
Well,
from our yard.
The adjoining property, is that a commercial property?
No, it's, the brick house on Stone. He's the one that's doing work to the garage-like building that he
Oh,
has
is that
there.
Travis's house?
No, no,
No.
no, next door, the house that
I'm so
sold
con-
recently.
So
It has
don't
the
we
big
have-
barn in the back
I'm
that's
getting
being
Stone Street and
stabilized.
Fair Street confused, sorry.
Yeah.
Don't we have a
What is happening to that
zoning
barn?
issue?
The barn is being stabilized to be
yeah.
rehabbed, they're gonna eventually
Yeah, that big
rehab that, build that
huge
barn.
falling down barn.
It's
We've been
got a tarp
watching
on
for
it now,
years.
so
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it has a
okay.
tarp on the roof.
We saw them a long, long time ago.
No, I remember,
Yeah.
and I remember them saying that they weren't gonna do anything to the barn.
Are we gonna have, is there a zoning issue with that?
I think I'm looking at this plan here, and I'm looking at the setback line. Now, your building extends already to that line there, but this is the setback line. You might have, right in that area, a zoning board issue.
Yeah, we actually, Jeff referred us to the zoning board, so we're gonna
Mhm.
be going in front of them hopefully at the end of March.
I don't know if
Lot
you have a
coverage.
lot coverage, what's the lot coverage?
30%, I think.
I thought it was 35%.
It's a lot of the lot, but that's not our
That's
issue.
other issue.
I know it's not our issue, but you asked, are there any zoning issues, and I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Well, I mean, the zoning issues concerning the fence, is not the fence 4 foot max?
3.
3 foot?
Well, and
That
it's
looks
interesting
higher
too, cause
than-
the Seven Fair they have exactly the same fences at the back, and they just completely replaced them as is at the same height. So I'm hopeful that means that.
Well, that
There
wasn't,
won't be
that
that
wasn't what was discussed with
Yeah.
your neighbor, so don't do
Okay.
that.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure, cause I saw that and I was like,
That
how to get
was-
away with that?
What was discussed?
Well,
They
replacement
withdrew
in
their
kind.
application for approval of the fence.
Replacement in kind?
You can't replace a non-conforming
Right.
fence.
How tall is this fence?
It's 6,
Oh, never mind.
yeah, and if we have to go down to 4 for it, like, that's, I don't have a problem with that, I'm just worried about
I
it
don't
falling
think it's
down.
visible. That's,
I
I wanna
don't think
walk
it's
around,
But
visible,
it,
yeah.
I
but
wanna walk around the
I
block.
mean, it's not an issue for us, I mean, it's more an issue for zoning.
If it does go down to 4 feet though, so that it is conforming, it's going to increase the visibility from Stone Street, but not by a significant amount. And I mean, as drawn, your plan for the back of the building is not objectionable, so I don't think it matters either way how visible it is.
So I guess the question is there anything that we have to offer the applicant, or that, any other suggestions?
Cause my kind of feeling is depending on your answer about the back of the house, I know that when you come in front of you formally, you probably want more information about the cedar shingles, you're gonna want more information about the windows,
Yeah, all your materials,
Yeah.
specs, the gutter, if
Right.
you're adding a gutter, that sort of thing.
Yeah, are the
gutters and
gutters just gonna
leaders,
be
put
pushed
that
all
on
the way
there.
back?
yeah, the gutters everything is just gonna be pushed back, we're not looking at changing anything materially,
Now,
everything's gonna be as it is today.
on that back facade, excuse me. Right now you have these two,
And it
quarter
looks like in the
round.
drawing, he put it down to the 1, if we need to put it back to 2, we could
I
put it
think,
back to
I
the
mean,
2.
the two kind of
It's
fits with
unusual.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a special thing about that.
Yeah,
It
we can
fits
put
with that
that.
Greek line, you
Yeah,
know?
And is the
Two
porch,
windows in the back of the house.
is the rear porch going to be, the rear porch is gonna be rebuilt?
Yes.
It's gonna be new construction, okay.
Yes.
So then I guess we would just need to have the information about that as far as the, railing and the materials and
Well,
the size.
that's where I have a question, because if you can't see it from Stone Street, I don't think you're gonna see it from Fair Street either,
Because it's on the other
'cause
end.
it's right.
It's on the Le Bouchon side of the addition.
Well, we'll just have to check whether it's visible from the
Yeah,
street.
Just
we'll
wait,
walk around.
isn't the rear porch isn't
So we're
running?
gonna push it out so that it pushes out with the rest of the house, but I'm not sure you can see that from Fair.
It's not running the whole width?
It will,
Oh.
yeah.
Well, I think minimally we would see the railing
The railing.
on Kent's side,
Yeah.
which is really the only thing we'd be looking at anyway.
Okay, so that's what I wanna make sure that I bring everything that I need material wise to see, so the railing for the back deck, okay.
What's the height difference between the porch and the grade?
You mean how
high is
off
it?
the ground is it? It's not more than 2 feet, I don't think.
What, the porch?
Yeah, how far off
Yeah,
the ground
it looks
is
to be,
How high the porch is right now?
from the ground, about 2
Well,
feet, right?
It's 2.5
I count
risers.
1, 2,
Yeah.
3 risers.
Yes, 3
It doesn't,
risers.
it doesn't look like it's very high. I think that you don't need a railing, unless you're over like 1'8" or something like that.
Okay.
So you may not need a railing. Something, you have to ask your architect.
Okay.
well, and it looks like there's like currently not a oversized step, but there's a step up to the front door. I don't know.
There's a little, when you're on the back deck there, yes, you walk up the 3 steps, you have the deck, and then you step into the kitchen.
Yeah. So I don't know how that affects where the final floor needs to be of the deck.
Well,
We're planning on keeping the step out onto the deck.
yeah, I mean, there used to be code that you had to have that step, and that changed with the ADA. But private houses are a lot more, they're easier as far as ADA.
Right, but I'm saying I can't tell from this drawing how big that step is. If the step is not too big, and that means that the top of the deck can get even lower, and then looks at the need for a railing, but it's just, I think, something to look at.
Is there anything else we need to cover?
I mean, you may also just find that you
No,
prefer to
I-
have
the
the
door
railings
door?
along the
I
side.
think we
Oh,
do.
no,
Give
because you can't see it.
Yeah.
Somewhere to put your drink and like a little bit of,
Yeah, I think we'll do railing no matter
Structure.
what.
My father-in-law
I'll fall
calls
off
it a
of it.
beer rail.
yeah.
It's where you put your beer on the porch.
All right, how?
So then, for the back of the house, should we just plan that we just should talk to you about the railing?
For the porch? I
Yeah.
think that'd be the only thing,
you
really.
need
I would like to
Okay.
walk around and look,
Okay.
Yeah,
And then we can touch base after,
Yeah.
okay?
because you still have to go to the zoning board
I
anyway.
still have to go to the,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay,
Cool.
great.
Cool.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you for
very
being so
much.
organized.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for waiting.
No
Thanks for waiting
worries.
so patiently.
One night.
I feel bad, we feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's been a long night.
We do it for the praise.
I feel terrible.
And you probably don't get enough for people, right?
I feel terrible, I need to go to bed.
okay, no, you're sick.
We're done.
We're done.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about the presentation for the
Let-
ordinance, but
yeah,
can we
let's-
please do it by email?
Okay.
Thank you guys, have a good night.
Bye, guys.
See you
We're
soon. Bye,
meeting-
Maggie. Good to see you.
We're meeting, nice to meet you, Maggie. We're meeting, next week. We're meeting on Wednesday for standards. We have a standards review workshop. We scheduled one on
That's right.
Wednesday and we scheduled one on Sunday,
That's right. This Sunday,
next Sunday.
the following Sunday.
Yeah.
Do you need to take that? Can I have the things I had attached to it?
Next
I stayed for
Monday. What was that? What's the date on this?
Sunday. I just don't have my
Wednesday,
calendar with me,
Wednesday the
so
7th?
Oh, I'm
And the
I'm
11th.
still looking at March. That's my problem. Okay.
Well,
that is March.
it is March.
That will be March.
Wednesday the
There's
7th.
because my calendar's doing this.
Wednesday
it
the
hasn't
7th
switched over,
and
okay.
Sunday the 11th.
Motion to, or we need Carolyn to adjourn, don't we? Do we need Carolyn in the room to vote to adjourn?
No.
No,
Motion
because we
to
have
adjourn?
quorum.
We got 4.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a
moved.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
moved,
Aye.
Andrea seconded.
Aye.
I don't know who's, I need to come in and take all this apart again. The zoning board stuff is all through
What if we
here.
do it on our workshop or
Well, we can do it, yeah, we'll do it next week.
just do it next week? We don't need to take this stuff out till then.
No, I'm not gonna do this tonight. I thought you